This year is shaping up to be another difficult one for the German economy, with the German government slashing its economic forecast to zero growth. Key German industries like pharmaceuticals, machinery and cars have been hit particularly hard by US tariffs. Germany's economy minister Robert Habeck had this to say when announcing the forecast.
The main reason is that the US trade policy, the threatened imposition of tariffs, has both a direct impact on the German economy because it is very export-oriented, and an indirect impact on the German economy because the global markets are nervous and the barriers to imports and exports primarily affect the export-oriented German economy.
For more, let's bring in DW's political correspondent Giulia Saudelli. Giulia, are the US tariffs really the only reason that the German economy is tanking?
I wouldn't say they're the only reason, but they certainly do have a big impact. If we look at the data, Germany is the world's third biggest exporter. So definitely for a country that has an economy that is so export-oriented, the threat of tariffs really does create a situation that is difficult. It also creates uncertainty. And when we have uncertainty in the economy, in the market, we see consumers, but especially companies, holding back investment. They're in a situation of wait and see to see whether their investments might actually not yield any results. For example, if this economic situation changes, tariffs are implemented. So it definitely has an impact. Also, as Habeck himself mentioned, a difficult geopolitical situation contributes to a difficult situation and playing field for an export-oriented economy like Germany. But as many experts have also been saying, some of the problems with the German economy are also homegrown, we can say. German companies are struggling to remain competitive, to continue on a path of innovation. And this is something that the German government that is now incoming is going to have to deal with.
Yes, Habeck, who we just heard, represents the outgoing government. But how is the incoming government then planning to tackle these problems?
Well, it's going to have more funds available for investment. For example, the parties that are going to be part of this incoming government managed to approve a 500 billion euro fund for investment and infrastructure that is going to, based on debt, but it's going to basically allow for more money to be channeled into investing in the country's infrastructure, which has been left behind in the last few years and decades. And the government also plans tax breaks, especially for companies, but also for taxpayers, to try to stimulate the economy. These are all measures that experts say can really help stimulate growth for the German economy. But the funds also have to be allocated in the right way. They have to go towards measures that help the German economy and its companies become more competitive, become more innovative. Otherwise, there is a risk that Germany will remain in stagnation for the years to come.
DW's political correspondent Giulia Saudelli there reporting. Thank you very much, Giulia.
Businesses across Germany are preparing for another difficult year as Trump's back-and-forth stance on tariffs fuels turmoil across the globe. After 2 years of recession, Germany's GDP is set to take another hit in 2025. Economic institutions have estimated a 0.5% drop, and that was before the tariffs were even announced. Key German industries like pharmaceuticals, machinery, and cars are among the most affected. Tariffs have been paused until July, which has only added to the sense of uncertainty. Yet, two Berlin-based companies are trying to keep calm and weather the storm.
This robot is pressing a drive shaft onto a rotor body. It's the first of many steps towards building a gear transmission. The Tornado company, headquartered in the northern part of Berlin, is making them for stair lifts, small personal elevators and industrial gates. 160,000 gear transmissions are being built every year. 15% of them are sold to the US. The company says that it will pass on to customers any and all tariffs that might be coming their way. It's an easy decision, they say, as the customers won't have much of a choice. For two reasons. These gear transmissions are uniquely built to fit the product. There's no alternative. And They don't think that this will be a long-term problem. There's new announcements, changes, walkbacks all the time. In the long run, the tariffs would be a problem. But for the moment, the customers are pretty relaxed. Tornado has a sister company in the US. They're currently worried about their supply chains. Many of their parts, including some of the electronic engines, are coming from China. And they will be subject to the current tariffs of 145%. The final products assembled here, by the way, are being sold within the US and back in Europe. We had initially planned to expand our plant in the US, but now we will go another direction. We're likely going to do less in the US and more in Germany, hoping that the tariffs for EU goods to the US won't be rising as drastically, but all these plans are currently highly volatile. We don't really know our next moves. Not far from Tornado's headquarters, another company, a startup called Deepspin. They're working on the final version of a portable MRT. It's the size of a dining room table and can be run off a regular power outlet. The founders are planning to go into mass production this year with manufacturing in Germany and the US. A few years ago, one would have said we can probably do one location for now and deliver worldwide. But now we'll have to take a closer look and see how the situation develops. In the end, we have to be ready to deal with any number of different scenarios. Back at Tornado, despite the chaos over Trump's tariffs, the mood is calm. Here they are aware of two factors stabilizing their business. People are getting older and demand for stairlifts will grow, and all their competition is also in the EU and is facing the same difficulties.
And Daniel Winter from DW Business joins us now. Daniel, given that the German economy is already in recession, these tariffs from the U.S., and there may be more to come, could hardly come at a worse time, could they?
It's a dire situation for German industry, Terry. Basically, we've seen a lot of these problems come down the track for a while now. So competition from China has been hotting up for a while. Items that used to be the exclusive preserve of German industry are now being made in China cheaper and to a high standard as well. There's also a worker shortage. The baby boomers are retiring and these companies need to replace them. There are not enough people and not enough people with the right high skills. I spoke to some startups who are saying that they're struggling to raise the money that they need because they can't find investors in Europe with deep enough pockets who have the right risk profile. And then we come to the tariffs on top of all of that. For example, with the car industry, this 25% tariff that Trump put on cars going into the US, that hasn't been paused. And so that not only affects car makers, it's a big industry in Germany, but all of the hundreds of suppliers too. And of course, that makes matters worse. And no wonder that we're seeing that reflected in the GDP figures and the predictions for 2025.
Serious pain for the German economy. So how are German business leaders, how's the government dealing with this situation?
Well, I spoke to two major business associations in Germany, the VDMA and the BMWW, that represents machine builders, and the Mittelstand, small and medium-sized enterprises. Now, of course, they're calling for things like tax cuts, the weakening of labour regulations, slashing bureaucracy. That's what they want to see from the government side of things. And what they say is, if this doesn't happen, if there aren't the tax cuts, the relief coming in to save these companies, then companies will be forced to merge with each other, they'll be snapped up by private equity from abroad, or even they will go under. Now, of course, unions say these are the companies that should have invested long ago in the types of technologies that would have sustained them into the future, and that all of this is being taken out on the workers. And there's some truth to that, because small and medium-sized enterprise borrowing has halved in the last 20 years. So they weren't making hay while the sun was shining, while interest rates were low, investing in the kind of AI and automation and digitalization technology which would have helped to give them an advantage today.
The German economy is heavily dependent on manufacturing and exports. You've mentioned some of these key businesses already. What's the future look like, given what's happening on the trade front?
Well, of course, it's going to be extraordinarily difficult. And the tariffs are just one significant component of that. I spoke to Jagjit Sri, who's a manufacturing expert from the University of Cambridge, who told me that there's this massive switch that's been going on for a while now from labour-intensive manufacturing to capital-intensive manufacturing, and that governments have to get with the programme. They have to make sure that the companies are set up for that, and that requires them taking charge, the government's taking charge, and seeing that there's no short-term fixes for all of this. It requires upskilling, of educating the workforce over many years. It requires this kind of spending that's necessary. And even this hundreds of billions that Friedrich Merz announced, he's likely to be the next chancellor in Germany, that even won't move the country forward unless that money trickles down into the companies investing in their manufacturing. And so tough action is needed by the government, but that medicine might be hard to swallow.
Daniel, thank you so much. Daniel Winter from DW Business.